woke up, I just felt really ill.
I try not to think about the people dying from it.
Our body doesn't know how to protect itself against swine.
Do you have any cure for swine flu?
Thousands of UK schools and millions of students are at the front lines of a battle against a scary and unpredictable bug.
I don't think it's that serious.
It's affected my cousin.
I really want to get it.
I'm not worried about getting it. It won't kill me.
In classrooms and corridors, battling the bug has become routine. Young people are bearing the brunt and have countless questions. A pandemic is when lots of countries become infected by a spreading disease. Swine flu is the first pandemic to be seen in over 40 years. It has spread to over 150 countries. Pandemics come in waves and spread fear and confusion.
It's made me quite scared of how bad it can get, and it's scary to know that maybe one of your family could get it, or even yourself.
On buses, I'm sort of don't want to touch stuff, and I'm like, hold on to my friend.
The initial questions coming from the students were really about the spread of the disease. When it was in Mexico, where will it go next? How long will it take to get here? Are people going to be dying?
Dramatic reports of deaths in Mexico nearly caused worldwide panic. But the virus wasn't as deadly as first feared. But there's no escaping the fact that people are dying, and young people are at greater risk.
I'm scared of catching it. I don't want to die young at the moment.
Manchester City defender Micah Richards may be the first Premier League footballer in the world to have come down with swine flu.
Manchester City supporters, there is one final thrust forward from the visiting team. Comes down to Richards! Micah Richards!
Out in Greece, was out there for 7 days. First 3 nights was perfect. Was going out, was having a good time on holiday, relaxing. When I woke up, I just felt really ill. I was sweating a lot. I couldn't really move. I felt really weak. I thought it was curtains, I couldn't really speak. I couldn't really move. So I knew it wasn't right. I knew something wasn't right.
More details have emerged about some of the people to die with swine flu.
While in Greece, Micah received Tamiflu and was back on his feet after 5 days.
It's not that bad. I was lucky enough to escape it.
A year ago, I would just be walking, pressing the buttons on the telephones and that. But now I'm more careful.
Are you more likely to die by swine flu than any other bad flus?
Our best understanding of how serious this disease is so far is it's comparable with seasonal influenza, the sort of flu we get year after year. People do die, but they're very unfortunate and in a very small minority. Our best guess so far is about 1 in 1,000 people who get ill with this disease might have a risk of dying.
If you do not have underlying health problems such as asthma, HIV or heart disease, the risks of actually dying are greatly reduced.
What's up, YouTube? Hold on.
In your lungs is where the pandemic becomes personal. Inhaled virus particles infiltrate lung cells, where they multiply and spread to neighbouring cells.
gross. Ugh.
Anti-flu drugs, such as Tamiflu and Relenza, can help you recover sooner by holding back the spread of the virus particles.
Oh, Tamiflu, what did you do?
Some people who have taken Tamiflu get a burst of creative energy, but it should always be taken in consultation with a GP, because it can sometimes cause other side effects.
I'm feeling very nauseous, and now I got a pain in my head.
There are more cases in people sort of under the age of 18 than there are over. And I think that has to do with our behaviour, mixing.
One theory about why young people are at greater risk assumes that there's more mixing between young people than between adults.
The second theory that's coming out, and this is really from a research group in California, are looking at the experience that older people have in terms of being infected with influenza.
Having encountered more strains of flu in their lifetimes, older people may have developed better defences.
People develop symptoms between 2 and 5 days after being first exposed to the virus. And that probably depends on the dose. So if you experienced a big exposure, then you probably get sick quite soon. If it was a low dose exposure, then the virus is almost, if you like, struggling to survive in your body before eventually making you ill several days later.
You feel like hot, sweaty,
headachy,
start to move slow,
vomiting, diarrhea.
The range of symptoms different people get is quite wide, from people having no fever, no high temperature and just a mild cold-like illness, to people really being knocked back and in bed for days.
Ugh, ugh, ew.
Any time from maybe the day before you felt ill to perhaps the day that you get better, you could be infectious to other people.
The concerns raised with me in my class were when it was being discussed in the newspapers about the development of the vaccine and the use of the chicken eggs. They're very interested in the process.
Most of the world's vaccine production still depends on the use of chicken eggs. But only when scientists have figured out the exact recipe for a new vaccine can mass production begin. One of the world's first samples of the swine flu virus arrived at this government-affiliated lab in the UK.
We had the challenge of making a candidate vaccine virus very quickly on very short notice.
This lab worked round the clock to crack the genetic code of the swine flu virus. Using a technique called reverse genetics, scientists can turn a dangerous virus against itself. Extracted genes are grown in chicken egg embryos and become the building blocks of a new vaccine. Only hen eggs that are guaranteed disease-free can be used.
If we imagine that one egg is one dose, to create 120 million doses, you need 120 million eggs. And so that's not really feasible if you're trying to expand rapidly.
At Imperial College London, an alternative to chicken embryos is being developed, called mammalian cell suspension. High-tech stainless steel chambers replace chicken eggs.
In terms of capacity, you're not limited to the number of eggs that you can produce. The amount you can produce is limited to the size of your bioreactor.
Some vaccine is produced using this technique, but it is not yet in widespread use.
How safe will that vaccine be? We don't want to be rushing into something and find that the vaccine itself might have side effects which we haven't been aware of or didn't predict.
Using vaccines in these instances are difficult because you have to think about the risks versus the benefits.
We perform all our regular quality control checks on these viruses as we do under non-emergency conditions.
The good thing about all of the fuss about bird flu over the last sort of 10 years or so is that we've now worked out some very good ways of making pandemic type flu vaccine. Vaccines have been tested and have passed all of those criteria that we would normally expect for a new medicine. Yes, there is always a risk to giving any new medicine, but at least this one has been tested in people and is safe as far as anybody can tell.
The vaccine they're developing based on the virus now, would it be effective if it mutates into the more virulent strain?
This swine flu will mutate.
The swine flu virus could mutate to a less dangerous strain. Should it become more dangerous, there is no guarantee the vaccine for the current strain will work.
This virus will select a new version of itself, which looks just slightly different shape than the current one, and we will need to update our vaccine in order to keep pace, as we do with seasonal flu every year.
Initially, kids look at it from the optimistic point of, oh, school's going to be closed, and they think, yes, great, if someone has it, we're all off for weeks, and that's a positive thing. But the reality is, when you start talking about this exponential growth of the number of pupils and teachers and people in the wider community affected, then they start beginning to think, oh, what would happen in the worst case scenario?
Because a pandemic infects populations in waves, scientists are now very concerned that many more people could become infected in a second wave.
In the worst week of the epidemic, we might be expecting in the UK maybe 1 million people per day to become sick.
I think once students get to the age where they realise that perhaps the mutation of the virus into a more virulent strain is what people are concerned about, that's harder to kind of alleviate that anxiety, because that's just the unknown still.
1918 marks the end.
In 1918 is the notorious influenza pandemic where tens of millions of people died. I think the good news about all of these worst case scenarios are that even when you work with 1918 virus, as the people in the United States have done so, that virus is still susceptible to the antiviral drugs that we have today that we're using against swine flu. So despite the virus's incredible power, if you like, to replicate, if you use the right therapy at the right time, then you can still control it.
Any new virus, no matter how pathogenic, we are absolutely confident that we can develop a candidate vaccine virus against any virus that emerges.
Please don't touch me if you're infected, and if you're not, then I stand corrected.
Oh yeah, I've been looking after myself, that's why.
So stay inside till it's gone.
I don't think swine flu is such a big deal like everybody's making it.
I didn't go to school because it was cancelled.
No, I'm not worried, I'm just a little bit cautious, so I don't want to catch it.
To the hospital to get my shot.
If you've got it, don't let it get you down. Just take it as it comes.
I hope you guys stay healthy, wash your nasty ass grimy hands, drink a lot of juice. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Bye.